Are you alright, Miss Helen?
Yes, I think I am.
Let's get on with the surgery.
Getting spoiled by these doctors by screaming? You're a failure as a mother.
Trouble busters!
I'm home.
Welcome back, honey.
How did it go? Is the baby doing alright?
It was fine, except, well, the baby seems to be in breech position, and I might have to have a C-section.
What? That's not a good idea.
What? Why?
Mom said that a C-section is a complete no-no.
Huh?
Mark, are you there?
Oh, hey Mom. Ellen's saying she might have to get a C-section.
Over my damn dead body?
No, but the doctor said...
No means no. A C-section is for a woman who isn't ready to be a mother.
That's so old-fashioned.
You really are incompetent as a wife, daughter-in-law, and mother-to-be, aren't you? Go and refuse that kind of bullshit.
What? Refuse? It's just that it hasn't been decided yet.
Then it's all right. Make sure you tell your doctor that a C-section is not an option when you go on your next checkup.
Huh? My name is Helen. I'm a 30-year-old housewife who is currently pregnant. My husband Mark is the same age as me and works in a local office. I married him because I was attracted to his kindness, but after marriage, I found out that he is quite a mama's boy. My mother-in-law lives near our house, so she comes to visit us often.
Helen, dear?
Oh, Mrs. Slater.
Today is a checkup day at the hospital, isn't it? I'm coming with you.
What? You're coming with me?
Of course she is. We're making her our personal advisor after all.
Today is the usual day of a periodic checkup at the hospital. Mark and I were supposed to go together, the two of us, and I didn't expect my mother-in-law to come along too. So the three of us headed to the hospital together. When we arrived at the hospital and the examination was over, Mark and Mrs. Slater were called into the examination room.
Ah, Mr. Slater, I presume. I examined the baby, and your daughter is doing absolutely splendid.
That part is not important. Helen doesn't have to have a C-section, right?
We've confirmed that the baby is now in breech position. And besides that, take a look at Miss Helen herself.
Huh?
With what she told me, alongside a handwritten report from her husband, she's physically not too strong to begin with, so I'm honestly concerned if she can endure a natural delivery. It looks painful even now, doesn't it? Are you alright, Miss Helen?
Yes, I think I am.
Let's get on with the surgery.
Getting spoiled by these doctors by screaming? Oh, you're a failure as a mother.
What?
It's because you're like that they're calling for a C-section.
But, Mrs. Slater, it's really painful, and it was confirmed that my daughter's in breech.
How many times do I have to tell you? If you have a C-section, you can't be a proper mother, don't you understand? If you just keep pounding on the baby like this, the baby will naturally go back into normal position.
What are you talking about? There are many mothers nowadays who give birth by C-section these days. And above all else, it's a safer option compared to a natural birth.
Please, let's have a C-section and be done with it.
Just what do you think you're doing?
Huh?
Children born by anything other than natural birth won't grow out to become good people. You trying to give birth to a mutant monster or what? What the? A baby will only grow up to be a wonderful adult because their mother gave a proper birth to them, whilst enduring excruciating pain. A child born through such a C-section, it would be a disaster if you let it out into the world. That's common sense.
Huh? Even with Dr. Stone's very proper, very detailed explanation, she still wouldn't be convinced. As a matter of fact, she must have been really unhappy with me because from that day onward, she started harassing me even more.
Helen, dear, are you there? Oh my God, you haven't cleaned this at all.
Mrs. Slater, I've been lying down because I'm not feeling well.
Frickin' enough. This is exactly why you need a goddamn C-section to give birth to my granddaughter. But shh, no talking back to me.
But even during the cleaning.
Helen, how frickin' long are you taking to clean?
I just finished, Mrs. Slater.
You're finished? What's this then?
It's dust, but...
And hence, that did not count as cleaning. Do it all again.
But...
Just shake a leg and get on with it. Mark will be coming home from work soon, right? As a compromise, I'll do you the favor of preparing dinner.
Oh, I see. Thank you very much. Thereafter, I quickly got sick and tired of having to hear her criticism after she checked the dust every 10 minutes. After an hour, I finally finished cleaning, and just as I sat down for a much-needed rest, Mark came home from work.
I'm home!
Welcome home, honey.
What's wrong? Feeling a little tired?
I was cleaning up the house after being told to do so by your mother.
Can't be helped then, in that case.
What?
Mark, my darling, welcome home.
Hey, Mom. I didn't know you were here.
I made you your favorite fried chicken today, a little present of appreciation for how hard you work for us.
Oh boy, fried chicken! It's been a while. I'm so excited. Well then, let's eat right away.
To be honest with you, I was disillusioned to see Mark not care much about the fact that I was exhausted and instead got excited when he found out his mother was there. But I was also hungry, so I headed for the dining table even though I didn't want to.
Please help yourself.
Thank you.
Sour. Is this bread made of sourdough? Yes, it is. Better than those white slices of bullshit. And additionally, I made the dough into a ball so that you could eat it easily.
Thank you.
Anything you hear from Mom, you can be sure that it's the truth and nothing else.
The fact that she's treating me like this when I'm pregnant and needed to rest, already that isn't a good start. Now add the fact that her son, my own husband, claimed that everything she said is the truth and nothing else without helping me. A month passed in that manner, and the day for another regular checkup came. On the way back from the last regular checkup, the doctor told me that he would explain the C-section again. So I decided to take Mrs. Slater and Mark along with me today, too. And...
Are you all ready, Helen?
Yes, ma'am.
Where's Mark?
He just sent me a message saying that he just left the office. It seems he'll come directly to the hospital by cab.
I see. Well then, shall we go?
Yes.
Is it going to be okay today, I wonder?
What will, Mrs. Slater?
The C-section. I've spent the last month drilling into you what it means to be a mother, so I'm absolutely sure you'll be fine with a natural birth.
No.
What was that?
Nothing, ma'am.
I don't see Mark. Where could he be?
I'll call him now. He's not picking up.
I wonder what's wrong with him. Well, I'm sure he'll be here shortly. Let's just go inside before him.
I couldn't reach Mark, so I went into the hospital to see Dr. Stone. But even by the end of the examination, my husband still hadn't arrived. Then Dr. Stone called Mrs. Slater into his office, and I would never have thought that what would happen next would be a brutal debunking of my doctor against her.
Unforgivable. Troublebusters initiate.
Hello, Mrs. Slater.
Doctor, she's all right now, isn't she?
Your granddaughter, ma'am. Yes, she's doing splendid as always.
Forget about that. I'm talking about the C-section. Helen won't have to do that, will she?
About that, ma'am, as a certified professional, I genuinely believe that a C-section would be better after all the tests I've done on Miss Helen.
What? Still? How bad of a mother are you, bitch?
What do you mean, ma'am?
As I said before countless times, C-sections are done by people who are not good enough to be mothers. It seems that Miss Helen Goody Two-Shoes doesn't know enough about being a mother yet.
That's not true, Mrs. Slater. The truth is that while a C-section is the safer option, I agree with you that a natural birth is the favorable option. However, there is a very serious possibility of endangering the lives of both mother and child if we proceed without an operation.
That's why I'm telling you.
Huh?
There is no way in hell I would put my precious grandchild in danger just because the mother is not prepared enough.
It's not a matter of preparedness, Mrs. Slater.
Please shut up for a moment, Doctor. This is a family matter.
I protest.
What?
I, Jonathan Stone, certified OB-GYN, have decided, after careful examination and consultation with other accomplished OB-GYNs in this hospital, that a C-section is absolutely necessary. You mean to tell me that you are dissatisfied with this decision, Mrs. Slater? Is that correct?
No, that's not what I mean. I merely think Helen's preparedness as a mother...
I must advise a C-section even if she were fully prepared for motherhood at this time.
That can't be true. If she was fully aware of herself as a mother, she wouldn't need a C-section.
If I may, Mrs. Slater, says who?
It's common knowledge from olden times.
What's the scientific basis for that? Any peer-reviewed evidence supporting your statements?
That's not fair. I don't know anything like that.
I have used all the data I have and all the peer-reviewed knowledge of pregnancy and childbirth to determine that a C-section is the safest option by far, so that Miss Helen can deliver your granddaughter safely and have no threat to her life in the process.
No, but...
And you, on the other hand, are recommending a natural birth based on your own self-serving superstitions. You have decided yourself that she can have a safer birth your way compared to the diagnosis I gave you, I suppose.
That's right. I don't trust anything a doctor says who would suggest a C-section so easily.
I see. Well then, in that case...
Just as I thought, my mother-in-law was not convinced. Moreover, it was just straight up scandalous for her to say that she couldn't trust Dr. Stone, one of the most accomplished OBGYNs in the country. Still, he was doing his best, trying to persuade my mother-in-law in a serious tone of voice. At that moment, Mark appeared in the examination room. However, he was crawling on the floor with a greasy sweat on his skin and collapsed onto his stomach.
What happened, darling?
I don't know. My back, my lower back. Suddenly,
Your lower back? A cramp?
no idea. Ah!
Doctor, my son, what's wrong with my son?
Mark was sprawled on the ground and was showing a genuinely excruciating pain, which he says was coming from his back. Mrs. Slater panicked when she saw the situation. Dr. Stone, in the midst of all this, calmly began examining Mark. Then he gave instructions to a nurse and began to perform a series of tests. Doctor, the results show something simple.
Let's see. Ah, I see.
Doctor, how's Mark? What ails my baby darling?
Are you asking me, Mrs. Slater?
Huh? But of course, you're a doctor, right?
Yes.
Oh, but you're an OBGYN. You don't know the diagnosis of Mark, do you? Oh, that's why you're acting like this.
My specialty is indeed obstetrics and gynecology, but even I can get a firm grasp of your son's case, and I think I can handle it.
Huh? Then do something, damn it!
Me?
Honestly, I can't talk to you properly anymore.
Mom, I can't. Too much. I can't move.
Mark? Doctor, what will you do if things get out of hand? What are you laughing at? You don't know, that's why.
I do know. We have the results of a simple test after all.
Then do something.
Me?
You've really got to stop this.
Why are you so angry with me?
Of course I am. There is a person suffering right in front of you. Why won't you help him?
On the contrary, I ask you, why don't you help him yourself?
Eh?
Wouldn't it be easier if you took care of your son and his ailment?
What? But oh, that's impossible, of course.
Why? You were so bossy earlier, weren't you?
That was because it was about a pregnancy. This time it's not about the pregnancy, so I have no damn clue.
No. I've studied obstetrics and gynecology myself for 15 years, but I can't be the one to interfere with someone who knows more about it than I do.
I told you this once, and I'll tell you again. This is not a pregnancy.
I don't know if you noticed, but the doctor that stands before you is an OB-GYN, Mrs. Slater. My specialty is pregnancies. Why would you want to go to a doctor who doesn't specialize in what your son might have?
Well, that's because you're a doctor all the same, just like others, aren't you?
That's right, I am a doctor.
That's why I'm frickin' asking you. What does Mark have?
This is where things get interesting, you see. Didn't you say earlier that you don't trust me?
Huh? I didn't.
Yes, you did. Very clearly indeed. How can you listen to my diagnosis when you clearly don't trust me, Mrs. Slater?
I'm telling you, I didn't.
It hurts!
Mark? Oh, I'm begging you, doctor, tell me what's really going on with my baby.
I don't mind telling you, but it's probably a ureteral stone.
Uteral stone? Famous for their extreme pain?
Indeed.
If you know that much, then treat my son, damn it!
The stone stuck in the ureter will flow out naturally.
Ah! He's suffering so much. Will the pain go away soon?
No, it won't. It comes and goes in waves, but it will continue until the stone is flushed out naturally.
I can't stand to see him suffer like that. Do something about it.
Of course, there are painkillers, but they probably won't work right away when the symptoms have become that apparent.
So you want my baby boy to be in pain all the time?
Well, yes, that's what I advise.
That's impossible, of course. You have no idea how weak-minded Mark is. He won't be able to stand it. He needs surgery.
Surgery?
Surgery, and do it quickly, will you?
You know we can't do that, I hope.
Why the frick not?
All your son has to do is wait until it drains, Mrs. Slater. Shouldn't take very long either, and yet you insist on surgery. Don't you think his preparedness to endure the pain is even a little present?
Eh?
And you told Miss Helen earlier, didn't you? You told her that those who have C-sections aren't prepared enough to be mothers. A C-section is an operation, much like the one you insist your son has too, you see.
That's...
That's what, Mrs. Slater? You don't trust what I'm saying, do you?
Well...
Can you leave such an untrustworthy guy with the responsibility of your precious son's surgery?
Well, that's because, at this rate, Mark will...
If you're so worried about Mark as it is, as I've been saying, why don't you do something about it?
Ugh.
Are we done now, Mrs. Slater? There are quite a few people who trust me even like this, and I'd like to attend to them now.
But wait a minute.
What is it?
I understand. I trust you, Doctor. Just please help my son.
What was that?
I'm sorry for what I've done so far, and I regret making you uncomfortable. Just please help my darling Mark.
You really are a person who thinks only about herself, aren't you?
About myself? No, it's not about me. I, as a mother, care about my son, and
you're willing to disregard the health and safety of your daughter-in-law and granddaughter.
Eh?
I have explained to you multiple times that there will be great risk to both mother and child if Miss Helen's natural birth went through, haven't I?
But this is different.
Which means that you still don't trust me, Excuse me then.
Now wait a minute, Doctor, I trust you. I care about my daughter-in-law and granddaughter, too.
I see. Well, in that case...
Then proceed.
If you say so. As a doctor, I will take responsibility and solve the problems of the highest priority.
Thank you so much.
Now, first of all, will you and Mrs. Slater meet me in the conference room, Miss Helen?
What about Mark?
Ah, yes. Nurse Costello, please keep Mr. Slater lying down in bed as well.
What? Just like that?
Do you have any opinions?
No, I don't.
Good. Right this way then, if you please. Now, please sign this surgical consent from here.
You are really going to operate on Mark, aren't you? Well then.
No, that won't be necessary. Miss Helen will sign it.
It doesn't matter if I, the patient's mother, sign the paper, does it?
That's true, but since the person undergoing the surgery is right in this room with us, I'd rather have her sign the form.
The person undergoing surgery, but Mark is sleeping in the bed over another room.
And Mark is not the one getting a C-section, Mrs. Slater.
A C-section? Wait a minute, why are we talking about a C-section now?
You said earlier that you trust me, right?
Well, yes.
And that's why I said that as a doctor, I would take responsibility and solve the problems of the highest priority. I am doing just that.
But the higher priority here would be Mark in any case.
Are you saying that you disagree with my decision?
But that's...
Because if you disagree with me, you don't have to trust me, you know.
I understand.
Well then, Miss Helen, please sign the consent form.
But what about my mother-in-law?
What about her, Miss Helen?
She told me to refuse the C-sections, so...
Eh? Is that so?
That's right, she's very against C-sections.
I understand. Well, there's still time before the birth, so let's take our time and decide on a course of action. Well, that'll be all for today. You may go home now, ma'am.
But Mark...
I said that we would start from the highest priority to solve the problem, didn't I? This time we did not come to a good solution, so this will be all for today.
What?
After we resolve the C-section dilemma, we will move on to the next highest priority.
But that's not right, is it?
You mean you disagree with my decision, right?
This is not right.
That's why, as I've implied to you many times before, that if you don't trust me, you can always find another hospital.
Ugh.
Can you move your son in that condition? By the way, if the patient only has a ureteral stone, the ambulance won't take any action.
Damn it. How can I get you to help Mark more quickly?
The highest priority for the time being is only Miss Helen and your granddaughter. I really hope we can ensure that these two can have a highly safe delivery.
Understood. I approve the C-section.
Seriously, I'm so happy for you, Miss Helen.
Thank you, Doctor.
By the way, now that you've given your approval for a C-section, please don't force Miss Helen, who is on her way towards labor, to do anything she doesn't want to do. Understood?
Force her?
By that, I mean doing things like harassing her or forcing her to do housework.
I understand.
I've recorded a whole conversation just in case. So the moment you break that promise, I'll take a different action to get Miss Helen justice. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's move on to the priority of your son, Mr. Mark Slater.
Finally, please help my son.
Bring the patient in, Nurse Costello.
After bringing Mark in, Dr. Stone went over all the test results, urine analysis, and so on, to make a diagnosis more set in stone. He also palpated the patient and finally made the decision.
Yep, this is definitely a ureteral stone.
So you are right after all. So what should we do?
Look, as I've said before, we have no choice but to leave it alone.
Excuse me?
Wait for your son to flush it out naturally with urine.
That's not what we agreed on.
Huh?
Weren't you going to operate on him?
No. As far as I can see from the ultrasound, the stones are quite small. If this is the case, surgery is not eligible.
What the hell? Then why didn't you tell me that first?
I did.
Who cares now? We shouldn't have been looking at that bitch Helen at all in the first place, eh?
In terms of life-threatening importance, Miss Helen's was by far the higher priority. There is no conceivable probability that a ureteral stone could be life-threatening.
But he's in so much pain!
And it only is pain, but I do feel sorry for his suffering, so I'll prescribe painkillers.
There we go. That's good. Tell me that as soon as possible next time, would you? Will it work right away?
It depends on the person, but if he's in so much pain, it might take a while for your son to feel the effects.
How long?
Well, about an hour or two. Just be patient.
So much time.
Well, that's all for today. Miss Helen, please go home soon and get some rest.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Slater, you and your mother can wait here at the hospital until the medicine takes effect.
Mark, darling. Oh, don't worry, my baby. Mommy will be with you. It's so hard to see you suffering.
This is just ridiculous. Let's go home. After that, the painkillers didn't work on Mark, and he was in constant, excruciating pain for longer than 2 hours. Mrs. Slater exhausted herself in the process. Perhaps it was because of this pain that he finally realized that childbirth was a very difficult time, and that what his mother had said was wrong all along, and he felt sorry for me and apologized. But while I appreciate him having a change of heart and apologizing, I felt that this family would not protect me or my child because of this incident. And so, in the end, we divorced. After the divorce, it seems he left his mother's house and started living alone in a small apartment. My mother-in-law, what with her son, daughter-in-law, granddaughter, and all her family members leaving her, she eventually started living a new life, with loneliness being her only companion. As for me afterwards...
By the way, Miss Helen, are you going to work as soon as you give birth?
Yes, I do intend to do so. I'm divorced after all, so I have to make the money somehow.
And is there anyone who might be able to take care of you meanwhile?
I do not. Both of my parents have passed on early in my life, and I have no siblings.
Well, in that case... I shall take care of you.
I gave birth to a beautiful little girl, whom I've named Gabriella. I started dating Dr. Stone, whom I call Johnny now, got married about a year later. Now we have another child and live happily together as a family of 4.
Trouble Busters!